Hello, Playdate. This is Don.
This is not Nick, but I am Ryan, and this week we are covering Playdate news
Indie Games of the Week.
and Season 1, Week 7 releases.
All right, thanks for listening. Let's get started.
Let's do it. So we should probably start with some news and notes to let everybody know that this week and this week only, Nick is away, but he will return. Just some life scheduling conflicts came up, but we look forward to having Nick back next week. And Don and I are going to see if we can cohabitate together this episode.
Yeah, we should mention that's our Nick, but we want to thank the other Nick Magnier, who was a guest host last week. So thank you for listening, or thank you for tuning in and guest hosting. If you didn't hear last week's episode, go back, stop this, go back, listen to last week's episode where he guest hosted to talk about Hypermeteor, which Ryan has been playing a lot since last week's episode.
Oh man, this is another news and note I wanted to mention before we move on. So first, thank you, Nicholas, for coming on last week, and I want to make this known. Combos are a real thing in Hypermeteor. Mm-hmm. So I was basically completely ignoring the fact that combos existed before, and I maxed my score out at about 1600. Don, I sent you and Nick a photograph of my new high score, which pretty much doubles that because I'm really focusing on combos now and trying to keep that up. My highest combo is not all that high. It's only like in the 30s or so. Oh. And I feel like it could be a whole lot higher. But even with that said, man, it's really boosted my score quite a bit. So Nicholas, thank you not only for coming on, but also for educating me in another way to play Hypermeteor.
Yeah, we definitely needed those pro tips.
Indeed.
To help us out there. Yeah, I need to hop on there. So, Ryan, what is your user number? You want to rattle that off so we know what to look for on the leaderboards?
Lord have mercy.
No, I'm just kidding. Don't put your play date on. I'm just joking. It's like 20 digits. Hopefully we'll get usernames at some point. Ryan was asking how to change our usernames. So usernames are only for, I think, beta testers and devs at this point. But someday in the future, we'll be able to have them.
Yeah, then we can really start bragging. Yeah. But yeah, I think that launched me up into the top 30. I was surprised because some of those top numbers are a lot higher than the 3,000 mark. But I guess there are, just a few upper echelon players that are doing that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing playing that and the new game's coming out too. But Nick, Don, I think you had another news and note for us. Did you want to mention?
Just there hasn't been a whole lot of news this week in Playdate land, but I did want to mention something big, and that is that Group 2 is shipping. They got their emails a couple weeks ago to make sure their addresses were correct, and sure enough, they started shipping, I think, last Thursday or Friday. So pretty exciting. People are getting shipping, I guess, rough estimates on when they're going to be arriving sometime later this week and this month. So keep an eye out on your emails and your mailboxes. So very
That's
cool.
Fantastic. So cool. Yeah. I'm so glad these little yellow boxes are getting more people's hands. They are such a fun experience, as you've been hearing us talk about for almost 2 months now. I do have an impromptu news and note. Stop me if we've talked about this before. My brain is mushy. But there were some images on Twitter showing the boxes that the Playdate arrived in. Somebody tore it apart and discovered that it was recycled material, meaning they were reusing old boxes that had printed features of like sound control boards or something on it. Do you remember exactly what it was?
Yeah, it was like a Yamaha. I don't know if it was a Yamaha soundboard or I thought it was a keyboard, but some sort of Yamaha musical device. Yes.
Yeah. I thought that was such a hoot. And then I saw Panic confirm, and they were surprised, but thought it seemed like they were not upset. But somebody else ripped it open and said, "Oh yeah, it's consistent. Mine is too." I am not about to rip open my box. It's so pretty, but to know that it is recycled and underneath all that, it had a prior life, I don't know. That makes me happy.
I have my box right here, but yeah, it's so nice. I don't want to rip it up either.
Yeah.
I don't know why I keep them. I threw out my Xbox One X box like 2 weeks ago.
Hmm.
First time in my entire life I've thrown out a box for a system, but I traded in the system a couple years ago,
Hmm.
and I was like, why am I keeping this here? I don't even have this anymore, so I put it in recycling.
Totally. Yeah, I'm
I
not a
don't
big
know.
box guy either. I will purchase a number of different retro games, mainly like Nintendo Game and Watch type stuff, but I just want to play them. I don't care about the box. You can't
Hmm.
play the box. But for some reason with this Playdate experience, I don't know, getting in on the ground floor in group 1, having the box, I don't know. I'm not trashing it. So,
It's such a small box anyway. It's not like,
yeah.
and it looks nice on the shelf. I don't know. I don't want to get rid
Yeah.
of it yet. Well, should we? Well, I guess there's one tiny news item. Let me pull it up. I wanted to mention that Waste Braver, a tiny survival tale, has an official page up on itch. Have you checked out? Are you familiar with Waste Braver?
I'm not. Tell me all about it.
Well, Waste Braver is kind of known for being one of the most impressive, exciting looking Playdate games. It looks very, very advanced for Playdate graphics and whatnot. And it's sort of like this post apocalyptic first person RPG. And
Ah, yes.
yeah,
I'm
so they
sorry,
put
go
up
on.
they put up like a placeholder page on itch and got a lot of people excited. So it looks like it's going to be $12.99. It will be available in 276 days. So I do not know when that is. Is that how many days are left in this year or something? Maybe
No, I think there's less than that in the year, so that would put it, Q1
next
into
year.
Q1, Q2, something like that,
That
2023.
sounds right. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know, but at some point we will be able to buy it. And yeah, it's
Wild.
cool. It's cool they got a page up. I like went on to pre-order it even.
Huh.
It doesn't look like that's able to do that, but it also shows Windows and Linux availability. So
Hmm.
I don't know if
It-
that's just a thing you have to have on itch. I don't know.
Weird. You're asking the wrong
Anyway,
guy.
you can
We
see
need
a
to
lot
talk to
more
Nick about that.
images. You can see a lot more images and trailers and GIFs and all that stuff. So I'll put a link in the show notes to Waste Braver. Very cool looking game from the strangest.
Very cool. Yeah. Now that you started describing all of it, that did ring a bell, and I can't wait to click that link again and confirm that it's what I was thinking of. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Good
speaking
call.
of itch and indie games, do you want to talk about
Doobity-doop,
your?
doop-doop, doobity-doop,
Oh,
doobity-doop-doop-doop. Indie games of the week.
yeah, I'm not about to make a bed. Do I need to make a bed to save your lips from flapping, or do you want to talk about your indie game of the week,
Of
Ryan?
course, I doobity doop doop doo. My indie
Oh
game of the
Lord,
week is
he's a
you
scat
cannot
man.
go back. You cannot go back from
I wish we could.
the bumpers. They're here to
Yes.
stay. So yes, the game that I would like to talk about this week is called "You Cannot Go Back," and it's by Timboe, and Timboe is spelled TIMB0E. You can find it on itch. We'll have a link in the show notes of today's episode, of course. And this is like a little dungeon puzzle game. And so I'm trying to figure out where to start with this game. Basically, it works better in portrait view rather than landscape view. So it
Mhm.
urges you, but does not require you to turn your playdate on its side, which I thought was pretty neat. And then it takes you into a room in which you have three choices. Each room has a different challenge associated with it. They can be like quick moving fingers trying to avoid obstacles, or they can be more puzzle like, but each room is a tiny obstacle of some sort. And some of these rooms will have clues scattered around. It could be a symbol or a word or a number that comes up again in later rooms. So it behooves you to be observant in these rooms and remember some of these cues, because later on, if you remember that, then you'll be able to make it through that room. But if you do not remember
Mm.
it, then you will be punished. And as it says, you cannot go back. So if you mess up a room, you go to the beginning and start all over again. There's no like one room back or trying again. It's all the way back to the beginning. I have not solved this thing. It says there are 3 levels, and each level of the dungeon has, I don't know, maybe 10 different rooms in it. I've made it down to, so the first level, and then you complete 10 rooms, and then you go down some stairs, and then you complete some more rooms and go down some stairs. So I've made it to the third level. I have not completed it though. There are a couple of rooms that are still giving me fits, and I feel like this is the type of game where there's a lot more significant Easter eggs than I fully understand. There's things sort of like scattered along the walls that on first glance look like bricks, but if you look closer, you can see that there's some sort of odd pattern to them, and they
Yeah.
change. Like that pattern of bricks changes based on the game that you're in. It's not the same every time. Anyway, really interesting game. I feel like I'm just scratching the surface, even though I've got down to that third level. I've played it a whole bunch, and yeah, I look forward to understanding the game better. If anybody knows of a what would you call it? I hesitate to say cheat sheet, but an info blog of some sort that outlines some of these more cryptic messages within the walls, within the details of each room, I would love to see it. But anyway, that's You Cannot Go Back. It's also a name your own price game. So Don, with all that said, have you seen this game?
Yeah, this is one I mentioned a few weeks back because I didn't know that the Playdate had a gyroscope until I played this game. And I
Hmm.
kept trying to push different buttons and turn the crank to change the screen because it just had the little arrows, swirly
Right.
arrows on the side until
Yes.
I finally physically moved the Playdate.
Yep.
Yeah, so it is cool you can play it in portrait view. I didn't realize that it had the memory recall chambers. I guess I was just winging it each chamber. And this came out when a lot of games were coming out
Hmm.
a month or two ago. And so I only played it a couple times and just kind of real quickly. Is this one where you should take like paper and pen and write down some of the puzzles or?
So I don't think so because of a couple reasons, and I could be wrong. So I'm not going to speak with complete authority on this, but one of the reasons I don't think that's the case is because in some rooms there are timed elements like a bomb in the middle of the room, and you don't have a lot of time to like write down what you see. You just have to kind of scan and commit it to memory, and then navigate around that bomb and make your way to the next room and hope that you remembered what was in there. The other reason I was going to say I don't think that's something that I would do is because every time it resets, I believe all the rooms are completely different. All the numbers are different. All the choices are different. I believe. Now, again, I could be wrong on that, but I'm open to people educating me if somebody knows better. Timbo, if you're out there, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I'm looking at the screen here. It says that the dungeons are definitely randomly generated,
Uh-huh.
but I don't know if the puzzles themselves are randomly comprised.
So, so did you say that you actually named You Cannot Go Back as one of your indie games of the week a while
No, no,
back?
no, no. I just mentioned that it taught me that I can change that it had a
Gotcha.
gyroscope. Yeah, no, it
Okay.
wasn't an indie
Gotcha.
game of the week. This is a
Gotcha.
fresh pick. I would have stopped you
Okay.
before we started.
I was about to feel bad.
No, 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 no. No, yeah, this is definitely a cool one. Definitely one to play. Huh.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to give it more time. I don't know. It feels like maybe I'm not smart enough to get through this, but it also
Hey,
says that it's quick to play. Each game lasts less than 5 minutes. Maybe I can remember stuff for 5 minutes.
I'm still struggling to figure out everything I need to remember and what all the different things mean.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yeah,
I love these little bite-sized puzzles, though. Single screen puzzles. I'm a fan of.
yeah,
And
same.
Elden Ring is my game of the year so far, and there's
Hmm.
so much depth to. It doesn't tell you anything. Like you do a lot of solving massive puzzles, sort of in that, and story beats. So obviously, I like bigger things, but not having quite the same community as the best-selling game of the year.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know how much I would want to do on my own. I am hoping more people would submit information to the Playdate wiki. Like I found that it got all this traction right away, and then it doesn't seem to get updated very often. The Playdate wiki site. So
Is
I've
that on
never.
the Playdate Squad Discord, or where is that located?
No, it's its own website. I'll put a link in the show notes.
Okay.
I think it's just like playdate.wiki.com or something like that. But
Hmm.
um, it seemed like it had all this good traction, so I thought, oh, this is going to be a really cool resource. And then it just doesn't seem to get updated very much. And I've been taking pictures of all the wrapping paper, thinking, oh, I'll submit it to this, so all the games can have their wrapping paper on there. But I've never submitted stuff to a wiki, and I'm not a computer guy, so I feel like maybe I don't know what I'm doing, but maybe I'll be the guy that helps contribute something to that and maybe get the
There you
ball
go.
rolling there. I don't
Hey,
know.
you were the guy who urged me to leave a review on Itch for the first time the other day. So,
Yes, that one
you've got the
review.
power. You have the
Yes.
power.
Yes. I did leave several more reviews this week. So
Cool.
keep it going, guys. If you can hear my voice, leave some reviews on Itch.
All right.
But
Well, I'm
speaking of
sure
Itch,
I'm not the only one playing indie games of the week. Don.
no. I wanted to offer a correction, but also tied into my indie game of the week. I cannot remember the name of the game or the person who created Tapeworm Disco Puzzle for the
Huh.
Playdate, but it was made by Wallmaster, also known as Lowtek Games, also known as Alistair Lowe. So technically, I guess this is made by Lowtek Games. It is. I've got he put so many links in the in the description here on the page here. I've got a press kit open. I've got merchandise. There is merchandise for Tapeworm Disco Puzzle, but let me tell you what it is first. So it's a grid-based puzzle game where you play as a tapeworm, the local nightclub owner. It's your job to make sure the fleas enjoy themselves. You'll be helping them collect blood, play banging tunes, and get them to gigs on time. Each level has objectives and obstacles like avoiding enemies, collect all the musical notes, and open doors, hitting switches and whatnot. And getting Fleadia, I don't know, a female flea to the gig on time. So basically, the idea is in this grid-based puzzle, you will move a tapeworm up and around, you'll collect musical notes, and then you can kind of go back down into the ground or the colon or something. You're in a cassette tape. So you're in a cassette tape. So I don't know where the action's happening, but you're inside of a cassette tape. His idea was he wanted to make a Playdate game, and then the Playdate kept getting delayed. So this ended up becoming a NES game and a Dreamcast game before it became a Playdate game.
Wait. What? An NES game?
An
Like
NES game.
did he release an NES cartridge
He released
or
an NES cartridge,
wow.
and
That's bonkers.
I think a digital version as well. It's available on Steam. It's available on Dreamcast. You can buy a Dreamcast disc. It's available on Evercade as well. So there's color versions if you want a color version. There's a side game called Flea, which plays differently, which is an NES homebrew game, which he's trying. It looks like he's now trying to port that to Playdate. So this is like this whole there's a whole lot of a whole world of disco tapeworm puzzle Playdate web that he's woven here. He could probably do his whole episode if Lowtek wanted to. But there's a whole lot going on here. But there's merch, a really cool shirt. There's buttons and all kinds of stuff. So I clicked on. It turns out his press kit link is wrong, so I'll send him a message. But it ended up taking me to a merch page with a really cool shirt. So that shirts don't fit me. So I don't know if anybody has knows if Redbubble shirts fit tall people. Let me know. And if they do, I will definitely order one because it's a very cool looking shirt. But anyway,
Man, I'm cruising around this itch page as you're talking, and this is the most fleshed out Playdate game itch page I have ever seen. This is incredible.
That's where I was going with this. This feels like it has to be a season 1 game or season 2 game. Like it feels more fleshed out than many of these season 1 games. It's very, very full featured. The graphics are top notch, music's top notch, gameplay's top notch. I mean, he's had a long time to work on it, and he worked on it. There's just so much going on here. It's a great puzzle game. The puzzles are very thoughtful. It's not just the same thing every time. There's new mechanics constantly as you go through the levels.
I'm looking through the comments too, and they're even quite recent as of just a few days ago, like within the past week, talking about how this game is fantastic, one of the best games on Playdate, and it goes on and on. Lots of similar comments like that. And it's a $10 price tag, but it's currently on sale 40% off as of this recording. We're
Mm-hmm.
speaking June 13th, 2022. And so $6 get you this evidently very fleshed out game. I've never played this before, but boy, am I thinking of downloading this now. I mean, it looks like it even has a visual instructional booklet type graphic in
Yep,
here too.
it
That
does.
impresses me a lot. Man,
A
wow. There's been
PDF
a
you can print and cut out.
full color PDF manual.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
which was nice. I
Very,
went back to it to like, oh, okay, what do these different things do? And
yeah.
the crank actually works really nice because some of the puzzles are timed where you can just push down to move the worm back in, but cranking it back in there, sometimes you have to crank it back in to get it to the other side of the map right away.
Huh.
So the crank is nice for those really clutch moments where you really need to get in there. But
Very cool. So do you
such a
just leave the crank out, or do you fumble around and whip it out when you need to?
no, I leave it out. I almost
Okay.
never dock my crank unless I need to.
Huh. Except if you're playing Super Corporate Tax Evader.
Right. It's got cutscenes every couple of puzzles and whatnot. I mean, it comes with the soundtrack. I mean, that $10 gets you not only the manual, but also the game soundtrack.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So
It,
does that
it,
come as MP3s that you can use, or what?
yeah. When you purchase it, you get the 3 different files. So the PDX file, the PDF, and the soundtrack.
Wow. That's killer.
All
Okay.
on your itch thing.
Sold.
So,
All right.
yes,
I'm going to
very
go
good.
get this.
Highly
Thank you for
recommended for
another.
$10. $6 is a steal.
I'm telling you, Don, you are blowing it up with these indie game recommendations. I
Well, great.
downloaded, tell me what I downloaded last week. It was called Trapdoors. That's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I had a ton of fun with that game, and I just kept thinking how right you were about that game rec. So
Good.
I got to check this out now.
Too many good games. Where it's a good
Seriously.
problem to have on this thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not like I remember so many times when you get a brand new console, you spend $500 and then it's like not so much in the digital age, I guess, but pre-digital age, there'd be like 1 or 2 games the first 3 or 4 months, and then
Huh.
really scraping the barrel for new releases. But we're not having that problem with the Playdate.
Oh my gosh, no. Yeah.
No.
It's a struggle to keep up with them. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So speaking of trying to keep up, Brian,
Games of the week.
Games of the week. Should we talk about the games of the week? I was struggling to keep up with these. Luckily, in a way, one of them kept crashing, so I didn't have a whole lot of time to play it.
I want to talk to you about that. I think it might not have been crashing. I know which game you're talking about. Let's dive into it. Let's talk about Questy Chess. This is by Dadako, and this is a puzzle game based on chess pieces. And essentially, you are a pawn, and you have traditional pawn moves where you can move 2 spaces at the start, 1 space thereafter. You can attack diagonally, but aside from that, you can only move forward. It sounds pretty limited, but it gets to be more expansive and strategy based when you start to collect additional chess pieces on top of that. And then you can use them in addition to your pawns and other sorts of power-ups. It's really quite an interesting puzzle game. Dawn, I was in the same exact boat as you. I had trouble getting to this week's games because I was having so much fun playing Hypermeteor after Nicholas mentioned this whole combo thing. So I tore myself away from Hypermeteor, and I'm glad I did, because this Questy Chess thing is very interesting in my mind. Now, I have a question for you, and I know Nick had the same problem, and I did not understand what you guys were talking about because I wasn't playing it until very recently. So when you move through a level as a pawn, you can get yourself into a place where you cannot move anymore because pawns can only move forward. So if there's another piece in front of you, like a knight, and they don't move, then you're stuck. Or if you move into a block that you cannot move through, you're stuck, and then it's over. But the game says something to the effect of, gosh, what is it? I should just pull it up. Error, system error, something or another. like
Yeah.
that. And there's a lot of like techno speak like that. Like it doesn't say, would you like to exit the game? It says, would you like to system error reboot or something? Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm getting,
programming speak or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And there's a lot of audio behind the game that references old computer tech, like old dot matrix printers, like doop 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 doop, and things like that, where it harkens back to this older era of game. Um, so all that to say, Don, was that the message you were continually
No,
getting, or was it a like the blocks fall apart on Playdate and you have to restart the
the
thing?
blocks, the blocks,
Huh.
a
I never
restart.
got that. I made it almost all the way through the forest level to the point where I was very, very, very near completing it on the last, I think they call it a block. Block 1-2, block 1-4, block 1-5,
Yeah,
whatever. Um, and then I even tried out some additional levels beyond the forest level. It never crashed on me once. So I
you're not
don't
quite
know.
there.
Huh.
Nick and
Is it
I
the next
both.
level that?
Yeah,
Okay.
Lagoon is the next one. Nick and I both crashed around the same point, which it would
Okay.
be cool if it did like a what was it, Mantis Snake or whatever from Metal Gear Solid 2, where it would like make your seem like your PlayStation was breaking. Maybe that's what they're going for here, but
Hmm.
the fact that I don't know, I feel like Nick's smarter than me, so maybe he would have worked his way around it. Maybe I'm just stuck in the same spot each time. It feels like it should at least tell you like.
Hmm.
But it's the knocked over blocks like, hey, your playdate
Okay.
needs to be reset.
Okay. Weird.
I
Huh.
wanted to, and even when it like you're saying, the pawn cannot move backwards, you
Yep.
could not go back. When the pawn stopped, I went to go hit start or something to restart the level. Like I knew I had
Mhm.
messed up, and it was frozen,
Huh.
which
Okay.
told me it was gonna break. And then sure enough,
Yeah.
a minute later it reset. I would
Yep.
I would hope that at that point it would give me an option to restart the level, not just
Uh-huh.
crash.
Yeah.
And it only
Yeah.
happened halfway through the lagoon.
Okay.
I made it through the forest fine too. I never had any problems until halfway through the lagoon.
Okay. I only very recently started playing it, as in today,
Okay.
in earnest. I opened it up a few days back, and I could tell it was going to require some more attention than I had at the moment. So
Yeah.
came back to it before the episode, but it sounds like you guys are in a different spot than I am. So man, that's a bummer. I wonder if they have been notified about this and are
I
working on a bug fix or something.
I looked on the Playdate squad, and nobody was really talking about it. So I
Hmm.
don't know if just nobody's gotten to it yet. The 2 games a week thing is starting to pile up. Like it's definitely starting to put a little bit of pressure on me as a podcast host that like, oh, we gotta like devote more time. So I'm not playing other stuff, like other video games. I'm mostly playing Playdate stuff. And this week, Knights of the Old Republic 2 came out on Switch, and like so that is something I was playing a little bit more in my free time, and it cut down on Playdate time. So I'm 2 weeks ahead of our show, and so I did not play like last week's games at all
Hmm.
on the Playdate because I was playing Switch stuff, and so that's going to pile up into this week. And it's a good problem to have, but it's starting to. Maybe other people are having that problem, is what I'm getting at. Maybe other people are not playing Questy Chess this week.
So I'm glad I'm not the only person. I wanted
Yeah.
to talk to you about how my feelings are feeling this week
Yes.
because I've been having that feeling like, man, there's so many games coming out. There's
Hmm.
2 games a week, and if I were 8 years old again, if I were 10 years old again, and I had all the time in the world, this would be
Yeah.
fantastic. I'm a parent. I'm middle aged. I'm 40 something years old. And man, my time is limited. And I feel like I'm just barely getting by enough to play each of these 2 games a week. And then it's a couple more. So like I'm so divided on this because on one hand, I'm like, boy, it sure would be nice to have 1 game a week and then we could really process it. But
Hmm.
then look at our rankings for this, right? Like, what if we had some one number 12 come out in the week, and we're just like, oh man, that's a bummer. But like each week, there's at least a game that we're like, yeah, that's at least middle of the pack, if not top of the pack. And middle of the pack is really good. Like, so I feel like it's probably still a good idea on Panic's part to come out with a couple games a week, because then at least there's one that resonates with everyone, it seems like.
Yeah.
But then I'm also of the mind of like, boy, Panic, you're doing a lot. You're giving us a lot, like almost so much that we can't keep up with it. So I don't know. I'm very split on this thought. I don't know. So I have a question for you, Don. Would you say, hey, Panic, on season 2, how about you just give us 12 games for 12 weeks? Or how about you give us those 24 games for 24 weeks instead of
No.
12 weeks? Or would you say, hey, Panic, keep doing what you're doing. Give me 24 games in 12 weeks?
For season 2, I would go 12 games, 12 weeks, because every play date comes with 24 games in season 1.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got the play date, having the 2 games the first week was a little too few in a way. Like, I leaned on Bloom a lot because Bloom was ready to go. But it was only a week too. It's not like 6 months like I was just talking about with the Nintendo 64 or something. So it felt thin for a very short time, and then we had 2 games.
Very.
And now it's been 8 weeks, and I'm like drowning in games in a sense. Like, I still want to go back to Echoic Memory a little bit more, and a couple other games.
Yeah, I'm still making my way through. I'm still making my way through Crankin's time travel adventure. I want to complete that. Like, there's a bunch of games I still want to revisit. Like, I've made it pretty far, but I haven't completed it yet.
Well, and like, that game doesn't interest me, and so that's a 0 in my book. And so, and like Boogie Loops, a lot of people were not interested in, so that's a 0 in their book. And so I like the 2 games at a time. But in season 2, everybody will already have 24 games. Plus, there's 140 games on itch.
Jiminy Christmas.
Plus more games. I mean, like, now it's a feast, not a famine.
Totally.
And so I think season 2, they could really curate it down to 12 weeks, 12 games, if they wanted to, or whatever they want to do. So, and hopefully the store will be open then too, the curated store.
Right. Yeah. So here's my thought. I think that they are going to be inundated with games, especially making an open call for anybody to submit a game.
Yeah.
I think they could have more than 24 games if they wanted to, and have more than 24 real good games. But if you remember in my conversation with Krista, when we started talking about season 2, she was like, oh, it's not going to be for a while.
Yeah.
So maybe instead of season 2 being 24 games for 12 weeks, maybe they could have season 2 be 12 games, but then not have such a long period between seasons,
right,
and then release another 12 games. Yeah, I don't know. Interesting, though.
Or there's a sports season, there's a space season, there's an adventure season, a visual novel season. I mean, they might be able to break it up, something like that. Or like she was talking about in your interview, that the snowboarding Wipeout game could be something where they could just release it themselves. The developer could release it themselves, where they wouldn't have to wait. There's no obligation to wait for Panic.
Right. And or it could also be on the catalog system coming to Playdate. It sounds like they're still really trying to figure out their model of release,
which is a good thing.
It is nice that they are remaining very open to developers having complete control over their game, so that they're not wed to any Panic or Playdate system that, hey, just go release it on your website, go release it on itch, do whatever you want to do, give it away, sell it. Like, I love how open Panic is being about this. And man, we are just lousy with riches for it.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're in a good spot.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to push back as a podcaster, saying maybe we should go to 1 game a week. And I was going to push back against that. I think we will get too far gone at some point. Doing 1 game a week, we'll stretch this out too long. So
I completely agree with you.
If we stick with it for 12 weeks, then we'll have plenty of time to breathe after that, where we can do more other things we want to try. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, totally. Yep. I don't think
there's
going to be a
shortage
of. Yeah. no shortage of info to talk about with Playdate. But
Yeah.
with that said, Questy Chest. So there is a person missing in our group here, and
Oh
that
yeah.
person is Nick. So Nick did not want to leave us without thoughts. So here are Nick's thoughts on Questy Chess. Nick says, "Love the 8-bit mainframe interfacing, and the sound effects are excellent. The game itself crashes a lot in the lagoon area, part 2. Being able to stockpile different piece types and use them in strategic ways along with different items like terrain, deformation, replacement are a fun and unique twist on a strategic puzzler. Like it, but would absolutely love it if it was a bit less crash prone." I think that's it. So, Nick, thank you for being here in spirit and in word. Don, what are your thoughts on this game?
This game is similar to a series of chess games on the Switch. There's a couple games, Night Swap. Bringing up the list here. I'm doing a bad job. Night Swap 2. There was something with Kings. Sorry, I'm not finding the dev. Anyway, there's something with Kings. There are a bunch of games that are like $2 each on the Switch. And the thing with that game is that it'll only use one piece per game, or that series. So it'll only create puzzles based around how the knight moves or how the king moves. And it doesn't use a full chessboard. It'll just use little strips of a chessboard, and then puzzles are built around that with switches and whatnot. So they're really cool games, and because they're cheap, it's like 50 puzzles each or something. So they're pretty
So there's
cool.
no swapping of pieces in that game, is what you're saying?
Right.
Yeah.
This
Okay.
really expands upon that idea. So I was kind of
Okay.
used to this style of puzzle because I played a couple of those games. So this wasn't so much a new idea, but this was a much cooler idea. Like this
Mhm.
added this war games, or this like uh, techno punk kind of aesthetic to it, where you're dealing with the programming and whatnot. You're swapping your pieces. They're getting power ups. It's got this Nick would know more, so I guess what these are called, but like these early PC gaming tropes are kind of
Mhm.
painted on top of this.
Yeah.
I didn't play a whole lot of these games as a kid, but I'm used to seeing this kind of thing. Um, Being a video game fan, and it was kind of cool. It turned me off at first because I didn't grow up with this kind of thing, but then when I started playing, I was like, oh yeah, these are fun puzzles. I like that it
Mm.
reads where the pieces are going, and pieces that you're going to take turn white, so it's real obvious. Okay, I'm going to kill that guy. I move here, I can kill this guy. I
Mhm.
can wipe these guys out, and I know it's smooth sailing once these two pieces are out of the way. Landing on certain pieces and not knowing what they do was kind of fun. Like, oh, this gives me a power up, or this unlocks a key, or this is a switch,
Mhm.
or I pick up something here, or this is where I use the crank and I can move the terrain. That really threw me at
Mhm.
first because I think you can only move it one direction, or you'll only move it so many spaces or something.
Or
So I
for a
was
specific amount of time or something. I was trying to figure that out
something.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I screwed it up at first, and so I had to
Uh-huh.
redo the puzzle. But then I
Same.
was like hyper aware of exactly where I wanted to move it,
Yep.
which is kind of fun too. Like, oh, I know exactly what I want to do this time.
Yeah, it
Um,
trains you really fast.
yeah, and the puzzles aren't so big that it's like you're
Mhm.
not like going back 10 minutes or something. You're just going back
Yep.
30 seconds.
Yeah.
So it was fun and easily accessible. I
Mhm.
was bummed that it was crashing because I wanted to keep going,
Mhm.
and there are branching paths, and because it has like this
Uh-huh.
vibe of like a computer crashing, I thought maybe there was some of it was built in, and it was hard to tell when it was freezing and crashing and when it was part of the game in a way. But it does give you um, text prompts of like, oh, you're not supposed to do that kind of beep beep, don't do that kind of thing. I didn't have the sound on as much as I want. The soundtrack is available for this game, and they referenced Bauhaus as one of the um, influences. So it's like, oh well, this is going to be um, something interesting to listen to. So I wish I had more time to listen to it, but it just wasn't a good week to listen to it. But I like that there's nothing else like this on the Playdate right now. Definitely not in
Yeah.
the season. So I love that there's like this peak of here's this new thing, and just another spike of something different this season. It's so cool.
Yeah, very, very interesting game. I love all the strategy involved. I play chess with my son on occasion, and we both have a lot of fun, trying to beat each other. He'll beat me occasionally. And the older I get, the more I think I appreciate the variety available in chess. Like once it's it's sort of like jazz, like you get to know the measures and the bars and the notes you can play, and then you just really freeform from there. And chess is very similar to that, where at first there's a learning curve trying to figure out what all these different pieces do, but once you understand them, you can really start to have fun with it and play.
Mhm.
And I feel like this game really allows for that. Not only with the different chess piece moves, but I was even like going forward a couple levels, but then hitting a wall and not knowing what to do, but then realizing, oh yeah, there was this portion of a prior level I did not complete. And so I need to go back and do that. And then I have this thing that I can use to unlock this level moving forward. So it was really quite interesting. One thing we did not mention is that each of the levels are represented by a little square on a map before you go in and complete it. And once you do complete it, it
Mhm.
gives you a percentage of completion. Like how many of the guys have you
I
knocked
love
out?
that.
How many of the power ups have you achieved? And so like, okay, I can go back and score better or get more things on this level. Yeah, lots of really interesting game mechanics on here. I agree.
Are you familiar with is it Dadako or Dadako?
I
The
am
company,
not.
the dev. So they made Infinity Pinball, which is a like
Hmm.
it's an app. It's it's kind of based on the games you love, the handheld LCD games, but with better graphics, I guess. The tune style pocket games, but with maybe like a GBA graphic style. So you'll
I know
have
what
like
you're talking about. Those have the sharpest graphics of all
of
time.
course, right. So there might be like a haunted house theme, a Western theme, and whatnot. So Infinite is
Yeah.
just you're constantly unlocking themes and whatnot, and different
Huh.
balls and whatnot. So it's kind of a cool, uh, worth a look if you like pinball. Worth a look on the App Store. And they also did Pirate Pop, which I have on the Switch, which is sort of like a puzzle bobble game. What's one of those games where like you shoot the chain and it pops the balls? You know what I'm talking about? Like Puzzle Bobble, but instead of shooting the ball, you're shooting a chain to pop them.
Oh, I don't remember the name, but I know what you're
I
talking
don't
about.
remember.
Yeah.
It's that
Anyway,
style of game. Another really cool, slick, retro style game. Anyway,
cool.
they're good at those kind of games. This is the most out of the box for that developer that I've played
Huh.
anyway.
Okay. Well, hey, we're probably getting a little long in the tooth on
Yes, yes.
Questy Chess. So I know you always have a very specific order of doing things. So you tell me what's next. Are we talking about the next game, or
No, no.
are we ranking this
We
game?
got to rank it. I will
Okay.
say, Nick has ranked it at number 10, right below Zipper, right above Whitewater Wipeout.
Okay. All right. Where are you putting this, Don?
I'll probably put it number 7, right below Demon Quest, right above Casual Birder.
Okay. Boy, this is a toughie. I'm putting mine right around there too. I'm deciding on the fly. I am going to put this at number 8. Questy Chess. Um, Under Flipper Lifter. That really gave me some consternation there because Questy Chess is a more strategic game, but Flipper Lifter is a more accessible game, I would
Mm-hmm.
say. Man, those are real close. And then it's above Zipper, another puzzle game for me.
Cool.
So number 8. Yeah.
Number 8, let me read the little profile here for Executive Golf DX.
All
Guess
right.
deluxe. Live the dream of corporate advancement by golfing your way to the top of a procedurally generated office building. So you have an array of unconventional abilities while climbing the ladder of success. But what will truly divide you towards greatness in business is the quality shared by all great thought leaders, a perfect backswing. This is developed by davemakes, and there is a soundtrack available for this one. I do want to mention this is maybe my favorite soundtrack on the season 1. I love the
Wow.
soundtrack on this. I mean, Echoic Memory, I guess maybe is my favorite, but they're just little little bites of songs. But
Hmm.
as far as a full featured soundtrack, I love the
Mhm.
soundtrack for Executive Golf,
Cool.
especially the terrible basement music. Terribly great basement music, but he nailed it there. But so this is basically like a 3-button golf game that you played hundreds of times throughout the 90s. You hit a button to start your backswing. You aim it. You hit the button to start your power. You stop it to stop the power. Then you hit it to, I guess, do your aim. But I'm not really sure what you're aiming for because you aim with the first swing. So do you know what the final button really does?
What do you mean the final button?
Like when you get into that black area, what does hitting it as dead center do? Is that your spin or something?
Are you talking about the initial portion before you get to the lighter
Yeah.
portion?
Yes, the dark portion.
I believe that is for putting. I think it's just a very low powered strike because I've needed to just hit it like an inch or two so that I can have
Oh,
clearance to shoot somewhere else. Um, as far as I know, that first portion is just to hit it softly.
you can hit it softly, but into the air. But you're still, even if you hit it hard, it doesn't take the swing when you stop it at the top of the power meter. It goes all the way back down towards the bottom. And you have to hit it another time to stop it. So usually
Oh.
that would be like a fade or a draw to the left or the right. But since it's
Oh.
a 2D game, you're not really
Hmm.
fading or drawing.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. You're right. I never hit it a second time. I don't know.
What? You just
I
like
never.
let it go?
That's right. And completed the game.
Oh my gosh.
Not
I
very
sh-
well, but I completed it.
I should have asked. I was texting with the dev a little bit, and I never did
Huh.
ask. I'll have
Oh
to
man.
ask him.
Yeah, ask him and we'll include that on the news and notes for next time.
The We Effed Up segment of the next episode. So a lot of people were having problems with this. You're going up an office building, and so you're going floor by floor, and there's tons of like office junk everywhere. You're navigating around chairs and copiers and whiteboards, desks and whatnot. And so sometimes the ball will fall under a desk next to a chair or something, and it takes a couple strokes to like get your way out.
Or a
Um,
couple thousand.
a couple. So I told him, I don't see my comments in our text chat, but I asked him like, what's your best score, and he says he usually shoots under 100. And my
The
best,
dev said that?
the dev said that. I think my best
Okay.
was exactly 150, right?
Yep.
And yours was a little higher than that.
Yeah, I think I had 206 or something.
Yeah, I think my worst level was around 40 swings, and then my best. I know Nick hasn't finished it. I don't know if he's going to, but I don't want to spoil like the back nine, right? Because the back nine, he calls it a victory lap. The dev said I like to think of it as a victory lap. The back nine is much easier than the front nine.
Yes, I would agree. I don't know how much you want to give away, or not.
I don't want to give away. I don't want to give away the difference. What makes the back nine different than the front nine? And they're not
Okay.
called front nine and back nine. That's what I'm calling
Yeah.
them because the
Okay.
name, what they're called, gives it away.
Sure. All right. Well, I guess I'll let loose with my thoughts, huh? Unless you have other stuff you wanted to say about it, or
Only other thing I want to mention is that there are power ups, and there seem to be quite a few, maybe like 8 or 9 or 10 or something. I found them to be more of a hindrance than helpful, and so I told the dev that basically, and he said sometimes they are a pain. He thinks the ghost, the sticky, and the helium help me the most.
Yep.
Super bounce can help if you're lucky. The game is mostly meant to be goofy fun, but I am kind of interested in what speedrunners make of it.
Yeah, I was going to say pretty much the same thing as the dev. The ghost especially is very useful. However, so the ghost is a power up where you can basically ghost through objects that would otherwise stop you. But you can't just like wail on the ball as you're a ghost, because I believe you are a ghost for a specific amount of time. So if you hit it super hard and fast, it could, and I have, bounced it right back to where it was initially, and then it stops being a ghost. So like I had to sort of pare back a little bit on how I was hitting the ball when I was a ghost. But yeah, the ghost is very helpful.
I thought it stopped when it hit the ceiling or the floor or the wall.
Not me.
Oh, okay. I thought if you hit those, it would become solid again.
No, mine was rolling around on the ground for a while and still ghosting through objects.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I think it's timed, but again, I I could be wrong. It's happened
I
before.
almost never used any of the power-ups unless it was really like a sticky or a helium where it would drag me to the ceiling and really help me.
I found myself playing that way initially. And then about halfway through, I just thought, we're going to be talking about this on the podcast. So I better figure out what these things are doing. And I just started trying a bunch of stuff. Like, what do these things do? There was one that's like a rewind.
Yeah.
And it took me right back to where my ball was initially after I hit it. And I actually hit a pretty decent ball that time. It's like,
same.
no, why did it bring me back? And so I tried it again to see if it did something different or I could figure it out. Like, it did not. So I don't understand why you would ever want to use the rewind.
Well, did you use the crank to change from floor to floor?
Yes.
I think the crank rewinds it. If you don't touch the crank, I think it'll rewind if you hit a bad shot. If you don't hit a bad shot, you don't need it.
Oh, so you hit a shot and then
if you need to rewind it, you can rewind it. It's a mulligan.
But if you do not want to rewind it, then you crank forward or something?
No. I think if you hit a good shot, you just leave it. If you need the mulligan, you hit the crank.
Man, I never touched the crank either of the times I was using rewind, and it zipped right back to where I shot from. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I was thinking maybe you hit it up a floor and then hit the crank to see where you hit it.
Listeners, give us a call.
we need
tip line.
We need the wiki to know what the things do. We've said so many times on this podcast, like, I wish these games came with a manual.
Yep.
Tapeworm, Disco
I was just going to bring that up.
With pictures and everything. So
totally. Yeah. Very cool. Well, I was about to give up on this game. I'm going to be honest. It was so difficult to begin with. I felt like I was really banging my head against a wall or a copy machine, as it may be. And it took me so gosh darn many shots to make it through a level. It felt like chopping wood. It felt like it was not fun for a while. Ultimately, it did become more fun and more easy. And now that I have a score, I am interested in seeing if I can best that and also better use the power-ups and more strategically shoot for them. Like this first run through I did, I was like, oh, what's that? I'm going to spend 5 shots trying to get that thing. But now that I know, what some of them do and how useful or not they are, I might not go for those power-ups and decrease my score. So I warmed up to this game the more I played it and ended up completing it in just over 200 strokes. So it's completable. It's playable. Stick with it. But yeah, it is an interesting take. I like some of the obstacles that start to appear as you move further on into the levels. I will give one minor spoiler that's pretty early on, so I hope, Don, you won't boot me off the podcast here. But I liked that the marketing department had a bunch of arcade games in it. The arcade games didn't show up until you got to marketing, and then it's like, oh, okay, these guys play around. Give them some arcade games. So I thought,
did you have the sound on in there?
I don't remember what it was if I did. Oh,
if the arcade games, they make arcade sounds.
Yes,
the sound effects in the whole game were really cool. Like hitting different objects makes different sounds is really satisfying.
It's true. And even like the golf ball sound had this very distinctive tink to it. Like when you hit the ball soft or hard, you could really hear it. It's true. The sounds were really great. Cool.
So do you play golf in real life?
I do not.
Okay.
I mini golfed. That's about it.
Yeah. I was actually on the golf team, and hitting, like when you're playing golf and you hit a tree and the ball comes back to you, one of the worst feelings playing golf is like just giving up a shot. And you'll be doing that a lot playing this game. And so I think it took like 45 minutes to finish the game around that. But then when I just played the back nine, it took less than 5 minutes. Because when you finish the game, you can choose front or back nine.
Yeah.
So I think I could probably make it a little bit faster through the front nine if I wasn't hitting so many trees, quote unquote.
Yeah, same. Well, hey, once again with the time, so let's see
Yep.
what Nick has to say about this. He says, this game is super hard. I love video golf games and could not get the ball out of the first area for dozens and dozens of strokes. I finally had a breakout game and was able to get to level 3, but it took a concerted effort. I feel that the difficulty could have ramped up a bit. For example, starting by showing the trajectory or at least a parabola of shots, most important for alternate clubs, and then narrow it down to the specific short angle finder that it provides at all times now. Another idea would be to increase the width of the openings and ledges when moving between floors. I love the concept and love the music. Each area having a different theme is incredible, and I enjoyed listening to the tunes while slamming into the copier for the 467,000th time.
Yep.
So, Nick, thank you again for being with us here in spirit and words. And why don't we go ahead and rank this bad boy?
Yeah.
Nick brings it in at number 12, under, oh, this pains me, Whitewater Wipeout, and above Boogie Loops. And Don, where are you putting this?
He's got it under Whitewater Wipeout.
Yes, but the fact that Whitewater Wipeout is that low always pains me.
Yeah, actually, I've got a number. I don't want to put it exactly where Questy Chess was, but I guess I will. Number 7, just above Questy Chess under Demon Quest.
Huh.
I love a golf game. This made me want to go try Mario Golf on the Switch again, a game I hated, but I love golf games, so I wanted to give it another go.
Cool. I am going to be less kind and put it down at number 13 of 14. This is below Echoic Memory for me and above Demon Quest 85.
You got to get back to Demon Quest, man.
I do. I agree.
At some point.
I told you that might be one of my mulligans I bring up. It's going to be interesting to revisit this list when we're done with all 24 games and see if we want to move things around. But
yeah, and I did want to mention real quick, Davemakes may be best known for making Mixolumia, which is a very, very good puzzle game. I think it's on Steam now, but I actually bought it on itch. It's a PC game that I bought on itch because so many people were raving about it. Very, very cool. If you like Tetris, Ryan, if you like Tetris, check out Mixolumia.
You know I love Tetris.
I know you do.
Cool.
Imagine playing Tetris at the bottom of a necktie. That's Mixolumia.
Fantastic.
Very, very cool game. So check that one out as well.
With that said, if anybody else has any Tetris type games they want to tell us about, they can email us at helloplaydatepodcast@gmail.com, Twitter at hellopdpodcast, Instagram, helloplaydate, website, playdatepodcast.com. We've got a Discord too. If you want to hop on there, contact us at any of those aforementioned places or on the Bingos tip line at 724-BINGOS1. That's 724-246-4671. Yes, that's a real phone number you can call and leave us a message. So that's going to do it for the Hello Playdate podcast for today. Don, did I miss anything?
You got it. Have a good night. Thanks for listening.
See you next time, guys.